Hi, everybody. Welcome to our episode, The Secret of Security. We are, just so everybody knows, this is all sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science at scientificmetaphysics.org. You can go there and check out our all of our materials and our different events and things like that that you could participate in if that's of interest. Today we are talking about, we're going to be talking about the secret of security. And as part of that, one of the things we looked at was this book by Alan Watts called The Wisdom of Insecurity. So that we're going to be referencing some things from the very first chapter of that book, should you have that book or should you want to pick it up. So welcome, Betty. We're here to talk about security. So welcome to the live stream.
Thank you. So are you going to, what were you going to present? I thought you were going to start with.
So what, I just wanted you to say whatever you have to say about the beginning of this whole thing about security.
Oh, well, it came up for me because I picked up this book, which I read years ago. And the first chapter has so many things that fit right in with what scientific metaphysics is all about.
Yeah.
So I kind of got right into it.
Right.
Okay. They talk about belief, and belief is something that you cling to, that you let dominate your choices, that you let dominate your conversation, that you let dominate your life.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like wishful thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not factual based. So if you rely on belief, you're going to trip yourself up.
Because right. But when we talk about security, so let's just take a step back a little bit and say we're looking at security and the whole notion of security. And the fact is that given what we've been through in the last year or what have you, you've seen a huge rise in people getting their astrology charts read. You probably see another rise in people possibly joining religions. You have this whole thing because people are looking for security given the chaos, given the uncertainty, given that people want to have more certainty in their life. It's like we just want to understand things better. So you see people doing these things. So when we're looking at security, and as a concept of, this notion of security, it seems to me that a lot of people aren't grounded in who they are, and they're looking everywhere they can think of to figure out what can I hold on to for security.
Yeah, well, the secret is right there in the sentence you just made, and people are not grounded in who they are.
Yeah.
Because security, which looks like you want to be free from danger, you want to be free from risk, you want to be free from anxiety, you want to be free from concern of all kinds.
Right.
You want to be safe, you want to be stable, you want to be confident, and all of the things that go with being relaxed and at ease with who you are.
Yep.
Well, you're relaxed and at ease with who you are when you know who you are.
Right.
So scientific metaphysics presents the idea that being itself is the God idea. And if man is made in the image and likeness of the God idea, then the thing that you look at, that I look at and call Betty, couldn't be who I am. So what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And in my study of this science, I find that it's a convenient thing that I have, a label that I can use, for instance, to play the game of living at this level of belief.
Mm-hmm.
Living as if I were a two-legged animal with the demand to be confident, the demand to be self-supporting, the demand to find joy and happiness, and have a career and drive a car and go shopping for groceries and all the things I do.
Mhm.
The thing that has me relaxed about all of it is a perception, an understanding. It's really more than a perception, but an understanding that the Betty, while it's great to have it around to use for this experience of living here as a human being, isn't all there is to me.
Mhm.
And so I begin to look at, oh, if I'm really the presence of the action of the God idea, then all of the attributes and characteristics of the God idea are who I am. So I don't have to be distracted by whatever the limitations are that I see going on with Betty.
Right.
But I do share the freedom and the confidence and the joy of living when my ground of being, if you call it that,
Mhm.
my certainty is that the God idea in action is what's going on as my being.
Mhm.
And for me, it shows up in this two-legged Betty.
Right. So let's look at a couple things. So in the book, The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts, he says, you can't understand life and its mysteries as long as you try to grasp it.
Yep.
So say that a little, unpack that a little bit in the viewpoint, because I think that we try and grasp at things. We try and grasp at satisfaction and fulfillment and joy, and security and certainty are right there in it. So what is this, as you cannot understand life and its mysteries as long as you try to grasp it?
Okay. It's more of an understanding of what's present than trying to grab it.
Mm-hmm.
In the book, Alan Watts talks about this grasping, and let me read you a little part of it.
Okay.
He says that, where is it on the grasp? Here it is. Indeed, you cannot grasp it, just as you cannot walk off with a river in a bucket. If you try to capture running water in a bucket, it's clear that you do not understand water and that you will always be disappointed, for in the bucket, the water doesn't run.
Right.
To have running water, you must let go of it and let it run. The same is true of life. The same is true of the God idea. The same is true of being.
Mm-hmm.
The same is true of
You
yourself.
you can't try and grasp it because that puts you outside of that which is being.
Dual thinking, as
Yeah.
if there was something out there that you could somehow control that
Yeah.
would make you happy or
Right.
confident or whatever.
Right.
And it's quite the opposite, actually.
Mm-hmm.
When you let it go, it serves you. When you grasp it, you cripple yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then he goes on to say the present phase of human thought and history is especially ripe for this letting go. And I think that there's a certain thing where you say let go and let God, right? There's a whole thing about where you just kind of, you're faced with whatever circumstances you're faced with, and then you have to get to the fact of who am I?
Okay.
And what's going on?
So in my practice, people call and they have this concern or this upset with themselves because they can't relax and they're anxious about things and they're concerned about things. And in the effort to manage or manipulate the circumstances, they even become more concerned and less sure of themselves because, of course, you can't grasp the flow of life.
Right.
What you can do is acknowledge who you are as being, as the action of the God idea. Acknowledging that has you standing in the ground of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, you are relaxed and confident There isn't anywhere you need to go that you aren't already being. There isn't anything you need to do that you're not already being. If you can open up and just allow it to be, my experience has been that people have a belief about security. They think, if I get a better job with more money, then I'll feel secure.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get a better job and they earn more money and they still don't feel secure. So the vicious circle goes on. Or they can say, if I were married and had somebody to have my back and take care of me, then I would feel secure.
Right.
But we all know the story of marriages and relationships and all of that stuff. On the human level, there's no assurance of security in fiddling around with the circumstances in which I live, the people that I associate with, whether I'm married or not,
Mm-hmm.
the status of my job, the status of my income. None of those things are going to produce security.
Right.
Security is in knowing who you are and allowing it to be, because the reflected presence of the God idea has nothing missing.
Right.
And nothing going on that can possibly upset or confuse
Mm-hmm.
or shortchange,
Right.
whatever.
So the fact is there's nothing to grasp at. And what we grasp at anyways is belief. And that's what you were talking about at the very beginning. What we grasp at is our belief, our concept of what security could be, or what it is. And then we try and go figure out how to get that in our life, rather than understanding who we are and what constitutes our very being. And that's what we're getting at. So in your book, Mind is the Athlete, you say acknowledgement of the science or principle of one's existence acts as a law of fulfillment to individual experience.
That's right. When you know who you are, it's a law to your experience.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good.
And then you go on to say willingness to give up past-oriented behavior has you step through the door of ongoing self-discovering. So could we look at this whole thought about security or unsettledness, uncertainty, and we could say this is all what the picture's looking like as part of your ongoing self-discovering and an opportunity for you to really discover who you are at a whole different level, because you're now confronted with that uncertainty or that chaos or whatever, and you're going to go look at what are you grasping at.
Yeah, there is an element here that I want to bring in the middle of what you're talking about. And that is that we don't really give ourselves a space of acknowledgement of perfection present, of power present, of well-being present, of abundance present. We have concepts of those things. You know, Betty has a concept of that, but being has no problem with any of it, because being includes it all. Well-being is established. You know, abundance is ever present.
Right.
The God idea is omnipotent, has all the power it needs for anything.
Right.
Yeah. So if I initially can acknowledge the fundamental presence that has Betty show up, that presence will carry me a long ways and has no problem with security. Security is a belief that there is something outside of my being, something outside of my mind or my consciousness that can in some way restrict me or restrain me or limit me.
Or hurt you.
Or hurt me. That's right. And that guarding against that takes up all of my attention and I lose sight of who I am.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I want to let that alone. Say, well, Betty, you don't feel too confident today. Well, no wonder. I look in the mirror and I think, why would I feel confident looking at that? So then I think, wait a minute, there is a law of life, a law of being,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the reflective presence of the God idea. Well, the God idea is omniscient, omnipotent,
Mm-hmm.
all knowing, all powerful, all wise, and so on. And I thought, that's the stuff that constitutes being. And
Yeah.
that's got to be present. So I let go of Betty's thought about it and think, let's just relax. There's something present already, secure and whole, perfect, complete.
Yep.
Let's just acknowledge that. And then on we go. And as we walk on, with that being our foundation, it's amazing what shows up in our human living.
Right. Now, for those of you, for those of you who are listening in, if you have any questions, any comments about anything having to do with this, please type them in. They'll take a little, there will be a delay to get them to us, but we'll answer all of them. So we would love that. And if you are liking this conversation, you can click the thumbs up or like or the heart, and we would love that as well. So along with what you're just saying, that goes right along with it from your book, Mind is the Athlete, this self-discovering is pure joy. When you recognize that who you are is your ever-present help, immediately available in every situation as a resource capable of answering your every need. And that right there would be the definition of security in my mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you know who you are, it's pure joy.
Yeah. And freedom.
Yeah.
When you feel secure. Yeah. And when you feel secure, you have that confidence, you have that knowing, you have that being, and it ends up you've got that capacity. And when you know who you are, that's what's available to you.
Yeah. And it may show up, incidentally, talking about all these things, but it may show up as marrying the right guy, or being in the best job you could be in, or having one of your children come along and help you out when you need it, or a neighbor that comes over and keeps you company once in a while. Something like, your life, humanly speaking, reflects who you're being.
Yeah.
And so all those things may show up. But if I count on that picture of having the perfect husband or having the best job in the world, thinking that that is going to provide me with something, I'm going to find that I'm in trouble.
Right.
Because I grow the thing that I can work with. So it's who I'm being that has me grow the job that's satisfying. Right. It's who I'm being that attracts the husband that will be right for me. It's who I'm being all the time that determines my human living.
Yeah.
And how it goes. So if I want to feel safe and secure, I want to be myself. I want to really know what it is that has Betty show up.
Right. So I want to bring in another quote and bring in this whole notion of willingness, because we've talked about that in other episodes. And you say here, the willingness to do this shifts the individual's experience from one of victim to one of diminishing chaos and the expansion of inflowing harmony.
Yep.
So I want to look at this whole notion of willingness, because you've got to be willing to be grounded in the facts of who you are. You have to be willing.
How can you tell for yourself, Kim? How can you tell for yourself when you're really willing?
I'm okay with exactly the way it looks and exactly the way it doesn't. I'm willing to have the picture show up however it needs to.
How do you know that you're willing?
Because I'm not in an argument with it.
Yeah. You don't have any but.
Yeah.
Like you hear people say, well, I'm willing to go to the movies with you, but. And then they tell you all the reasons they can't do it.
Right. Right.
I'd be willing to have that happen, but.
Right.
And every time they say,
right,
after the but, tells you why they're not going to do it or
Yeah.
can't have it.
It's the same thing Dad used to say, you either have everything you want in life or all the reasons why you don't.
That's right. And after the but are all the reasons why you won't have it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to look at that in this notion of security, because I think in security we say, well, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Am I doing the right thing? And sometimes I think I've heard people say, well, if God could just tap my shoulder and let me know that what I'm doing is the right thing. And I think that what you need to know is tap your shoulder, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It's like live to the highest right under the circumstances of what you know.
So
And you know clearly when you're not, right?
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
You'll know it intuitively.
That's right.
So one of the things I wanted to mention was that the experience of security occurs when you allow any beliefs of insecurity to just fade.
Right.
If I try to make them go away, I'm going to be stuck with them.
Yes.
So I just have to allow it to disperse. It's like putting on the fan when you have something you're cooking steam up the kitchen.
Right.
You allow it to disperse. If I stand there and fan over top of it, it'll not do anything except continue to cloud up the kitchen.
Right. Now, here's some interesting stuff. So Kate says, is it allowance? Is it allowance? And then she said, willing seems like a hook. And then she says, willing seems like not presence. So you may want to clarify this, Kate, but go ahead. Because willing, if you're willing, go ahead.
Willing means you are aware. Why would I, for instance, let's say if I had a top job and was the leader in whatever the thing was that I was working at and made an excellent salary and all that sort of thing, I wouldn't probably spend very much time being concerned about the status of my job. But now, if I had a need to dress up for a party and I had no idea what really would look well on me and so on, I might ask a friend or somebody, even a store clerk, somebody with some perception about clothes and color and all that thing, to help me out. But I'd have to be willing to ask for that help, to have that show up in my human living. And willingness to have something occur is what has it occur. Otherwise, I would not, if I didn't have an occasion to need a new dress, I probably wouldn't buy a new dress. But when I have an occasion, then I'm willing to look for a new dress.
Right.
It's kind of like that. It isn't that I have to make myself be willing for something. No, it's my everyday living, and something occurs and I could do it or not do it. For sure, it's not going to happen to me in a positive way, I'll put it that way, if I'm not willing.
Right.
If I go kicking and screaming the whole way, it's not going to be a rewarding experience. Although where it takes me is a good look at the Betty and say, what is she kicking and screaming about?
Right.
That might occur. But generally speaking, what has you do what you do, go where you go, be who you be in your everyday living is your willingness to do it and to go there and to be present. So willingness is important.
Right. And I'm just going to
When something isn't meeting your expectations, look at your willingness.
Right. I'm just going to put this back up. The willingness to do this shifts the individual's experience. So your willingness shifts your experience from one of victim to one of diminishing chaos and expansion of inflowing harmony. Let's look at that willingness. If you're not willing, it means you are locked into a judgment about what's so,
or an opinion,
or a view, point of view that isn't okay. So that's where that's coming from. And then Kate just said, thanks for the clarification. Awesome. Okay, so there's the next quote from Government is Self-Government. God does not have being. God is a word for being, the all of all.
Yep.
And she goes on to say, this is from Margaret Laird, Government is Self-Government. The freedom from personal evaluations is characterized by harmony, boundless bliss, enthusiasm, and a great zest and love of life.
Yeah. The thing there in that sentence to look at is personal evaluations. If you notice that you're not enthusiastic, if you notice that you don't just love every minute, that you don't have a feeling of harmony and everything's going great and that sort of thing, take a look at your personal evaluations of whatever it is you're into.
Right.
Because,
and there's plenty of personal evaluations given the world right now. I'm just saying.
well, if you think you're a two-legged animal, you're loaded with personal evaluation.
Yeah.
And they are, the characteristic of a personal evaluation is limitation.
Yeah.
So if you want some freedom, you'll say, well, that's an interesting idea, but let's see what else there is.
Mm-hmm.
What could that be? What other door could open?
Right. Right. So another quote here on page 42 of Government is Self-Government. The attempt to cling to a theory or to sidestep chaos and suffering will interfere with our constitutional right, capital R, and will create tension and conflict. So unpack that a bit for us.
Well, we have a theory, which is a lot like an exalted belief. We have a theory about something. In a sense, we have a preconception based on who knows what filter is in there that has you view it the way you view it.
Right.
But when you have preferences, when you have likes and dislikes, when you have strong feelings about one thing or another, then you know that there's a personal evaluation dominating that conversation for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you have that going on, it interferes with your right, capital R, I mean your divine right. It interferes with your freedom. It interferes with your ability to be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates tension and it creates conflict.
Very good.
And the reason for the tension and the conflict is like tapping on the door saying, wake up, you're trapping yourself into a problem here.
Right.
Yeah.
Very fun. Okay, so then we go on to the next one from Science and Health now. We're moving over to Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy, where she says the soul, the God idea, has infinite resources with which to bless mankind. Sounds like you have all the security you're ever going to need if you know when you know who you are.
Yep.
What would you
say about that?
Well, what would you say? That's what I would say.
Well, it's another way of saying what we started out with being. You see, the God idea is infinite.
Right.
So infinity is the resource, being you. And when you're present to that, everything you do will fit exactly where it should, accomplish what it should, produce whatever it needs to do.
Right.
You will be free as a breeze. It will also be a blessing to everyone in your world.
Yeah.
So are you clear that you live the world as you are and not as it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I want my world to be blessed, I'm going to take a look at where I'm coming from. Is this Betty running the show, or is there an acknowledgement of the present perfection that is the God idea showing up with this Betty label?
Right. So then this is a good one, maybe to end on. Life and being are of God.
Yeah. All of that is the God idea. all of it. If
Right.
I think I have a life to do something about, I'm stuck with the belief that Betty is all there is to me.
Right.
You know, I think Betty has a life. No, it's more like life shows up as Betty,
Hmm.
but it also shows up with a Betty that's got freedom,
Right.
dominion, and joy.
Right. And there is one more quote that I don't have to put up because I didn't put it in. And I want to just say it here because I think it works. It's from Science and Health, and it's a desire for holiness is requisite in order to gain holiness. We shall sacrifice everything for it, that we may walk securely.
Yep.
So, any last words for you, Betty?
Yeah, I wanted to say one little thing about the human being, the two-legged animal, can often be a reaction machine. Just know that when you're in the reactionary mode of human living, you are not being yourself. And you can look for all that goes with the limitation, the stagnation, the lack of joy, the discomfort. It's actually a diseased way to live.
Right.
So you do not want to be a victim reacting to what you think is happening to you or coming at you or attacking or whatever, limiting you.
Yeah.
It's the belief that this thing is who you are that has the fear of limitation. Being yourself, there's nothing that limits you.
Right. So with that, I just want to say we're sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. You can go to the website at scientificmetaphysics.org. You can buy Mind as the Athlete or Christian Science Re-Explored or Government is Self-Government, which we talked a little bit about today. We did some quotes from that. You can also see some of the activities and things you can participate in out there. We would love your support. We're a nonprofit organization, so we would love any support that you've got there. And please check us out. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. We will be back next week, same time at 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central. And we'll have another episode for you where we're going to be exploring some new other ideas. So, and thank you so much for being here. All right, that's it. Until next week.